Welcome to the first video of the Workshop Warriors channel. I wouldn't normally do an intro like this for all the videos we're going to do, but as this is video number one, I'll do an intro. So what you're going to expect from this channel is more of an interview sort of style, more orientated around workshop sort of stuff, not so much going out and traveling and driving cars up hills and all that sort of thing. It'll probably be like long form, so you're probably not going to sit down and watch a 40-50 minute video straight up. But you might put it on the way to work like a podcast and listen to it in the background sort of thing. Visually it's not amazing. It's just me sitting here talking and interviewing someone else. But the content is really what's going to take it away, and hearing the kind of interesting conversations which you don't usually get access to here. So that's a bit about what the channel's going to be. This first one is with Mitch from Packard Automotive, and we're going to talk everything about GVM, GCM. We're talking about Ford Rangers, the Super Duty 4.5 tonne ute that's coming out, the Y63, what we're doing with Y62, the 1500 truck series. There's a lot of congested information in there. If it's Friday night, grab a beer, sit down and watch, or just put it on the way to work and watch 10 minutes every day. All right, let's get into it.
I'm Mitch, and I work for Packard Automotive.
Excellent. So we're going to obviously end up talking about some engineering stuff and all that sort of thing. But I want to know a bit more about you, because I met you 2 swings ago for the first time over here in Perth. And it started off, hi Mitch, nice to meet you, and it ended up me sitting here taking notes because I was fascinated with what you had to say.
Yep.
I'm keen. So rewind the clock, how did you get to where you are, what you're doing now?
Oh, well, it's sort of fell into the job with a mate working there, and I was working just a sales job at Autobarn, and so working there as basically a receptionist making bookings.
Yep.
And then run the workshop, servicing side of things, and the owner is an engineer, and
Gotcha.
you sort of hear it, you pick up on things, and it interests me, and I've got a bit of a thing for retaining information.
Yep.
So I just sort of went from there.
How long have you been at Packard now?
Since 2017. So started 2017.
Yep, getting on. We'll round up to 2025.
Yep.
We'll just call it 6 years.
Yep.
So you guys over there, you're pretty heavily involved in the engineering side of stuff.
Oh yeah, that's pretty much my job for the most part, and the engineer Jack, his entire job is engineering vehicles, where some of the other engineers in WA sort of dabble in it.
Yeah.
And other jobs, it's sort of a lot of do trucks, we don't do light vehicles.
And I was thinking about this morning, and it's different in every state too, but when does a car need to be engineered?
There's basically the list of certain mods that you can do, and some things are grey area and it's up to experience. So factory option engines, provided everything associated with the engine. Some cars have an engine upgrade, also the brakes happen at the same time. That has to be done at the same time. That can go through a pit inspection.
Yeah.
So pit inspection, checklists, permits, so a qualified mechanic can sign off on it.
Okay.
And then there's certainly you can change diff ratio without any certification. UHF, you can put water tanks.
So you have to get the car engineered for a UHF?
No, without engineering. Do some basic things, remove seats, put factory option seats in the car, so you go from a bucket to a bench seat to a bucket, factory mounting points, and...
so that doesn't require engineering?
No, same as installing turbos on non-common rail diesels, doesn't require any engineering,
right.
Just goes through a pit inspection, again, qualified mechanic signs off on it.
So is there a line when it becomes like a long-range tank? Does that need to be engineered, or so that one doesn't?
Not typically. There are obviously circumstances where you push the boundary, and someone is going for a custom one-off abnormally large tank. That has to be assessed to make sure that the carbon canister, that sort of system is done.
Yep.
There's no defined line for the most part. It's case by case, and for the most part, 90% go through a pit inspection.
So if I was going to do like a 2-inch lift on a car?
Doesn't require certification technically. If you're going through pits for for licensing, whether you've got a yellow sticker or unlicensed, they qualify and ask for a modification permit. There's no checklist. They just go, 50mm lift. That's it.
Gotcha.
$75.
But say if I want to do a 4-inch lift?
Can't be done.
Okay.
No provisions for it at all. There's some cars, depends on their measurements from factory. They might physically go up 4 inches from when you lift it.
Right.
But on paper, it's only a 75mm suspension, 50mm body, and then increase in tyre size. There is provisions where you can increase tyre size above 50mm by replacing substitute axles. So say you put the hub assembly and suspension out of a Y62 into a Navara, you could then run the tyre size what the Y62 could, but your overall height comes down, so you'll lose your ability to body lift. Not a bad thing, not the most amazing thing to do to a car, but they have their place. So yeah, there's...
I reckon I'm going to have a heap more questions specifically on stuff, but the bit that blew my mind when we sat down last time was talking about what I'm used to doing in Adelaide, my hometown, and the engineering we do there, then coming over here and it's like it's another country. It's all the things that we could do there are different. So, and you've dabbled in a bit of federal and obviously the Perth stuff too. So I'm keen to hear your take on what's different in Perth compared to what it is in Adelaide or the rest of the country.
It's just, we use VSB 14 almost as gospel, a few additional...
Might have to explain that.
Vehicle Safety Standard Bulletins 14. So 1 is trailers, 6 is trucks, above 4.5 tonne, and 14 is light vehicles. And if it says in there that's what you got to do, that's it. And then you have your ADRs and stuff, it's more for building the vehicles, but VSB 14 for modifying them. We're probably the most, out of all the states, we're the closest to using that. So we don't override it.
Okay.
There's certain cases where it's not explained, so there's nothing about portal axle, say, in there. WA has gone and assessed it, and they've now classed it as suspension lift. So when you lift a vehicle, you base it off a suspension.
Well, for all the GVM stuff, so in Adelaide, I'll say it's a post reg, and say it's a Y62 Patrol. We'll get the car in. We can either do it through on-track or DMW. That's probably the most common one that we do. And they've got their sort of federal sort of certification or that they've done. But then, even though it's done federally there, it doesn't mean it's like just a lay down misère for, because if you go into the detail, it says you can fit I think a 37-inch tyre, a 4-inch lift, and all sorts of stuff. But in Adelaide, when we talk to our engineers there about it, they're like, no, we have to stay within these certain limits. And I think it's the same over here. There's some limitations as well. But where does the liability stand? Because I believe that's different between Perth and other places too.
Yeah, so the WA Department of Transport holds liability.
And that's different here than any other state, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Why they have control and why engineers don't get the final say. Other states, if you provide, thousands of dollars worth of testing and go right into it, they'll sign off it because their liability, as long as you can prove and it meets the requirements and stuff like that, they'll quite often accept it. Where no matter what you do, if the WA says no, that's it. We can find ways around it, and it depends on the modification. But typically, if they say no, that's it. But they wear liability, so they get to hold control.
So if I was going to do, say, a Ford Gladiator over here in Perth, which we haven't done yet, we're planning to, what would I need to do to get that through to be engineered here for, whatever, I think it's 4250 or something, GVM that they do on, that's the federal sort of thing that GMW will say, but it doesn't mean you can just walk in here and get it done. No,
federal does not override state. It would have to. Basically, we have to provide FEA data for the actual load increase, the chassis. That's extreme there, extreme weights. Brake testing, handbrake testing.
So it doesn't matter that DMW's already, done it at their sort of federal sign-off. No. It's got to come back and be redone, does it?
Yeah, the requirements for getting SSMs approved is much less than a state-based approval for most states.
Oh, so it's easier to do federal than state?
Yes,
gotcha.
But that's because a lot of it is liability.
Yeah.
If you're an SSM manufacturer, you wear a lot of liability on the setup. So, although you can just go do a 4-inch and 37s on a Jeep, in reality, it may just snap and break and become horrible. Like they put the 37s on a Jimny. Yeah, well, SSMs allow for stuff like that. It's a bit extreme, but in reality, it would never work, and then it's not good on the SM manufacturer.
All right. So to do it here, means retesting.
Yeah,
and that's what you guys do?
Some of the testing is already done, so they do the right testing. It's just not added onto the SSM. It's not required. They do their own testing to cover themselves.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So if we were to get one through, we'd have to basically get that information from BMW, for example. You check it out, but then you submit it to DOT.
Yep.
And then they check it out as well, I suppose. And if they've got to be happy with it.
Yes.
And I wonder if that's where our challenges are with, BMW have done a 4.5 tonne on a Y62, and it works everywhere else in Australia.
Yes.
But it doesn't work here. Is that a DOT thing?
That is the evidence they have is that there's been some issues with 4.5 tonne.
Right.
And they just want proof that it's suitable, so they FEA have a lot more components that they would normally have. Yes, so, and they were under the impression they were a monocoque chassis as well. They're not, they're a ladder frame.
Yeah, okay.
They do have a subframe that goes onto it, that might be part of the issue. But yeah.
Whereas it's fine for the rest of Australia, but for Perth, it's limited to 4.2 post-reg, but pre-reg 4.5 tonne.
Yeah, they got no control over pre-reg.
Gotcha. So that's where it's easy.
Pre-reg across Australia, no state can say no to pre-reg.
Yeah.
They have to accept it's federal. It's when it comes to state-based approval, they can go, no. South Australia, I believe, accept SSM as gospel. If they do SSM as approved, the government says it's okay, they'll accept it. There might be some cases where they don't, but it seems they accept it everywhere.
Pre-reg, it's not too hard at all to do anything for all of the catalogue in Adelaide. But yeah, so it's the post-reg which is the problem, because then they have to go and submit all that stuff to an Adelaide engineer, and if they're not happy with it for whatever reason, because the liability in Adelaide seems to fall with the engineer, whereas the liability in Perth seems to be with the government or DOT.
Yeah.
So you'll happily sign off of it. You've got to get it to them to sign off. That's the problem part.
Yeah. So obviously we have to show the data and everything and do the right thing on our end so that they accept us and don't come back. And
on-track GVMs as well. They're just as easy. Yeah. They seem to have done a lot of testing as well. And
yeah, they did more testing than was ever required.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what date exactly they sort of started doing it, whether they did it based off of Queensland's requirements. They're like, oh, we'll do it just, for future. And but they did great testing. And
I know Andrew's done so much testing, and it's almost taken him the entire lifespan of the Y62 platform to get it over the line. And I swear 2 months before On-Track announced they can do the pre-rev GVMs, then Nissan came out and said, oh, we're releasing the Y63. So, and then dragged it out for another 2 years. So we're good for at least another 2 years to keep us busy.
Yeah.
All right, I want to ask you some other questions, less commercial.
Yep.
What was your first car?
1986 Suzuki Sierra.
Sierra?
Yeah, I had quite a few of them, a lot.
So, well, that's going to answer my next question. Modified?
Oh yeah.
Tell me what you did to it.
First one, I was 15 when I bought it, and did a body lift in it, eBay suspension lift, 31-inch Kumo Muddies, some turbine wheels, Delta Hurricanes, made my own custom rear bar, relocated the bumper more forward and up so it cleared the tyres and still looked factory.
Yeah.
Race bucket seats, 4-point race harnesses, and ripped out the stereo, carpet, roof lining. It was basically steering wheel and seats, and hung around that for a few months till I wrote it off.
Oh, really?
I had a few accidents in that. I flipped it on its side.
Nothing to do with the modifications, though, surely?
Yeah. Yeah, I laid it on its side on a smoko brake when I was an apprentice, driving the wet how I shouldn't have been. And then I actually finished up before that. I was just heading to a mate's place and went around a corner too fast and got it on 2 wheels, and he was coming out of the street. I landed on top of his car and went to someone's backyard, so I was driving like a race car and it was too top heavy. And,
I'll do it. Let's see. We'll go one for one. How many illegal cars have you owned? I'll start. So I reckon the first illegal car I owned that wasn't engineered was I put a 2-litre Starion motor into a Cordia turbo, which I probably should have had engineered, I'm guessing. All right, your turn.
Oh, I mean that's the first one. I've had well over 100 vehicles and stuff. And
Serious?
Oh well,
You're going to win this.
I've had over 20 cars at one point.
Yeah.
All different stages and stuff. But
I'm in a different league.
yeah, so just about, I'll say all of them. I've had some cars since I've had kids that have been just family cars, stock patrols, and illegal up to pulling the third row seats out, not getting certified, all the way up to.
All right, maybe we'll change the question.
Size lifts, but obviously heavily modified. Just about every patrol I've ever owned, apart from a couple of the ones with the kids.
What's the most dangerous? And then I'll tell you my most dangerous one I've owned.
Probably a Sierra on 8-inch lift and 35s. It might have been.
How did it even turn them? Geared.
Oh yeah, basically it was like a drive on the street. You could drive on the street, but have reduction gears because they're quite easily to obtain for a Sierra. They reduce high range and low range, where typically the reduction gears for patrols, GUs are low range only. And but it was not drivable by any stretch. It was just had rego plates, but it's more for. But didn't have that very long. But yeah,
I had just before COVID, I bought this car called Bucket, and I knew Steve at the time, and he had his workshop, and he always wants me to show him, at least talk to him about cars before I buy them. And every time I went and showed him the car that I wanted to buy, as a fun car, he's like, no. I'm like, that's it, I'm just going to go and buy whatever I want and just deal with it. And so I bought this 105 Hilux. It had a V6 Commodore engine somehow squeezed in it. Way too much power and torque. I ended up shredding a diff, live axle front and rear, bushes. I think I'd done 400,000 Ks the body, and you'd turn corners and just hope that the car turned with it. And going through a roundabout was the scariest thing I've ever done, to the point where no one would ever come in that car with me anymore.
Well, the horrible steering setup the Hiluxes do. So yeah, it's not
straight line, it was great.
Yeah.
As soon as you tried to turn, then it was awful. And then I sold it in the middle of COVID for so I bought it for $4,000, and I think I sold it for $7,000. It was fantastic. The poor old car. I want to hear a bit more, because last time we spoke a little bit about the track sort of testing that you do. When do you have to do, get a vehicle and go and take it on a track?
Because quite often we tailor certified vehicles. They're a tailor-made setup. Customer brings the vehicles already modified. They love how they love it. They've already spent the money, and we get over the line. So it's usually the combination setup is a one-off.
Yeah. With
tyre size, wheel offset, suspension lift, brand, components, and so on. So myself and Jack the engineer, we go to the racetrack. It'd be the Motorplex or the RAC racetrack. Well, not RAC anymore, but the racetrack at Perth Airport.
Yeah.
And do some testing, brake fade testing, lane change testing.
So this would be kind of like Jay, who used to work here with his Colorado that he SAS swapped. That's the sort of car that you'd need to go and track test, yeah?
Yeah, anything over 50 mil combined.
Really? Oh, so it breaks that pretty quick then?
Yeah, but also you can do a SAS swap without and be less than 50 mil if you can manage. It's a bit hard with suspension travel limitations, but there's no requirement for a lane change test below 50 mil, even with a core conversion.
Really?
SAS swap. It's assessed, but the lane change test itself is not required because the roof height's not exceeding 50 mil.
I bet there's a few people sitting there watching now going, so if I get my Colorado, SAS swap it, leave it under 50 mil, and then get it signed, well, you don't even have to get it signed off really, do you?
You still get engineered, and so have to go make sure that the wheel tracks and load right, because you have to use a diff that has a higher front axle load, higher front axle load than what the vehicle originally had. Same as the rear if you swap it out.
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of our customers will do that. They'll tell us as well, and
and I bet they're thinking, we'll get it signed off, and then we'll go and put a 4-inch lift in it afterwards. So when they do that, what is that car still considered engineered?
Partially for insurance purposes, no. If they want to go back over the pits, they just have to put it back to the way it was engineered.
Yeah.
And the way it was photographed. And
actually, that brings me to selling cars interstate too. So, like my first Y62 Patrol, I sold. It was registered in Adelaide. Sold it to a guy in Perth, and I believe that was a nightmare bringing a car across that had 37-inch tyres, 4-inch lift, and all that sort of stuff. So, what's the process when a car, like a customer comes to you with that sort of thing?
Depends on what was certified in the state it was in originally and what state it was. So if something's engineered in Northern Territory, very little is. It's more modifications that are easily accepted. They're engineered in other states like body chops, chassis extensions, GVM upgrades, stuff that typically has truck codes against it. That way, that's where it's more standardised. Trucks are much more standardised across Australia.
Right.
But cars are nowhere near. So people have, I've got a dual cab Patrol with a chassis extension, and coming from Queensland, you put through a AV26 bulletin, and it can get approved. They'll assess it and go, yep, the data's been done correctly, this is the information we have, the placards, whatever, and they'll accept it. They can go over the pits. Otherwise, they'll assess it and go, no, this is done as a one-off backyard job. The different state, that state's requirements are not up to our standards. No, go get engineered, and they'll you get approval, and you go see one of the people on the list.
Let's say if it was one of those scenarios, they come to you. Is that where you can sit there and like go through the customer and fix it so it can be engineered?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have our own workshop, so we work on vehicles. Quite often we finish builds off, but mostly guide people to do it themselves, and other workshops to do it themselves.
Yeah.
We just build contactors and emails, photos, and just guide them through the build. Whether it be they've already bought the car or they're going to buy a car. Quite often we have pre-purchase inspections, but for engineering, so they can bring a modified car to us, and we can do an engineering inspection on it.
Yeah.
And let them know, because they may still buy it. It's just they want to know how much to pay for it, what to factor in. They might still buy it at the same price, but they've got to have 10 grand to finish it off. And we let them know the feasibility of it and what's required, and they go off and buy it.
So what about like power requirements? You get a car. My tank 300 sitting out there. I think it was all of 168 kilowatts when it came off the showroom floor. If you want to like improve the power and get more out of it, is that when you have to get it engineered?
More than 20%, yes. Against certain mods that you can't quite tell, but if you just change the turbo to a non-OEM turbo, if you put in an aftermarket OEM spec, bolts on the same spec, then it's like going to get a repair, get a lower control arm replaced on a car, it's a different brand. That doesn't require certification, obviously. But if you put a bigger turbo on it, on a petrol or a common rail diesel, that requires engineering, regardless of the power it's making. If you change anything to do with the emissions, so intake manifold, technically injectors and stuff that would affect emissions, you would have to. But it's like a snorkel, no. Typically, an intercooler upgrade doesn't, but it gets case by case. Some intercoolers require modifications to fit, and then it's assessed case by case and so on, and whether bonnet scoops are required. And
I'm doing this is my creative brain thinking here, because I'm sort of in a stage where I thought the Y63 was going to come out, and I thought I need to like sell some stuff to like get ready for it. And it turns out that Y63 is still 2 years away.
At least,
but I'm still selling my V8 Navara that I've got, and a few other bits and pieces around the place. Probably going to sell the tank soon as well when it gets back to Adelaide. We've sort of had our fun with that. But looking at what's happening in the electric side of things, there's obviously Elon Musk has got his Cybertruck thing going on. I've got this like crazy idea to get I don't know, like a GQ or something, but go get like a BYD motor out, electric motor, and put in it, because some of it like that. I was looking up the stats. The BYD seal does like 0 to 100 in 3.8 seconds. It's like insane the amount of power that's coming out of these electric vehicles these days, and my theory is that lithium fad is going to we've got 10 years and then everyone's going to give up on it and we'll go back to petrol. But I don't want to miss out on an electric car in that period. I want to, in 50 years' time say, yes, I had one of those. But I'm thinking of like creative ways to do it. So if someone was going to put like a high-powered electric motor in an old car, is that, obviously emissions will be okay. What about what tests would you have to perform?
That's where we've started looking at it, but we haven't gone too far into it.
Oh, really?
I'm because
we're looking at it.
We've had some people with our VW Beetles. We can buy a kit for the VW Beetle.
Can you?
Yep, off the shelf. Other car you adapt to suit.
Yeah.
And you could do it. There are some power limitations there, but that needs some refining, just because the way electric motors work in their power and stuff. You can have depending on the battery pack and the motor. You might have a 200 horsepower motor, but you can have more than a 200 horsepower peak for a short period. the battery system in there. So it takes a bit more work. We haven't had to go too far into it and start looking at it because we had all the inquiries.
Yeah.
So far, inquiries have been Land Cruisers 7 Series. Would be a hybrid setup. Convert those to a hybrid, so they could be run obviously dedicated electric, and then engine can be used as a generator, and also the engine can run out of power and out of battery, and then you can use the engine to move it, that sort of thing. That's a bit different, adding the electric motor on. They typically aren't for power either, for like mine sites and that sort of thing, where it's more just about getting the car moving.
Yeah.
No, at top speed or acceleration, it's just about range is probably the biggest thing. And
if it's going to happen, I bet it will happen in Perth first. This town just seems like it's got extremes of everything. Just going for a walk down the marina this morning and the massive boats that you see, and it's actually such a pretty little city, Perth. I never realised it until you like get out. Everyone gets up early in the morning and walks around. It's busy, and customers rock up here at 7 o'clock in the morning. It's such a paradigm shift to what's happens in Adelaide. Everyone starts at like 8:30. Here, I think like the expectation is, what do you mean we can't start at 7? That's just like what happens over here. It's a whole different world. I'm walking down that the Swan River, trying to remember the suburb, Mount Pleasant, I think it is. There's all these amazing houses along the Esplanade there. And in Adelaide, you walk down one of the nicest streets in Adelaide, and you might see a $5 million house in between all the other ones. I looked up for sale. Like there was this house, just one of the ones on this street, and it would have been 150 exactly like it, and this one was 11.9 million. I'm like, wow, there is definitely some economy going on over here.
Yeah,
that's why I reckon, the first electric GQ Patrol will probably be in Perth, I reckon.
Yeah, most likely. The only thing that limits us is range. Everything's so far away, so our limited four-wheel drive tracks are very far apart, where Queensland, you laugh, and probably one of the better states, I would have thought. Again, I've never been over there. I've popped into South Australia once ever, and that's to a mine site, so I get a good look. So WA, just from what you see on the videos and stuff. And
people don't mind travelling here, do they? Even yesterday, someone rang up saying, I'm coming down from Port Hedland to get a stereo installed in my car. I'm like, really? That's a long way to go for a new stereo, but that's just what people do.
A good chunk of our customers come from the Pilbara. Obviously, all limited amount of engineers there are in WA. We're all within half an hour of each other, 45 minutes of each other. We're all in Perth.
Yeah, okay.
So it was nothing north of Joondalup at all, and so nothing WA.
It seems like there's more and more patrols going up north as well. Once upon a time, I'd heard people in Perth, like when I was here 4 years ago, and they'd say, oh yeah, but like we're Toyotas, we only do 200s up north. And then slowly it seems to be changing, and we're getting so many customers with patrols coming to us from up north. And they reckon every other house has got a Y62 these days. So,
well, the value for money on the Y62 versus the Land Cruisers and stuff, if you're not a die-hard cruiser or patrol fan, they're very competitive. So Land Cruiser got that name, reliability, and they are reliable cars.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Nissan doesn't have the most with all their vehicles. You have some nuggets, but in the patrol range, and they look at the specs and stuff, and then you drive one, and
Nissan do some stupid things though. Like going back to 2019 when they went from like Series 4 to 5, they put the price up by $3,000 and took out the sunroof. And then more recently, halfway through 2024, they put the price up another $3,000 and took out the all-round cameras, and it seems like every year they add some price on and take something away. Yeah, which I can't get my head around. Which makes me think, actually, we've got 2 years left of this Y62 platform. I swear there'll be one more update. Nissan's saying no, but I bet they do something.
Nothing. I mean, in 2022, 23, the badges changed on the vehicle type things, so little update things and facelift type thing. Nothing extreme. They did the interior with the stereo system, because that was... They
must have run out of the old stereos or something.
All they realised, just to make it a little bit more exciting till the Y3 comes around, is they had, all the predated interior in 2010. And
I reckon, like when they went from GU Patrol to Y62 or Y61 to 62, Nissan went to like wherever they get everything made, said, all right, we're going to need 10 million wood grain dashes and we're going to sell them out in 2 years. And then no one bought the car, and now they're just like flogging this wood grain dash and those stereos and everything and the seats, I reckon too. So I reckon next year, this is my tip off, I reckon there'll be some sort of improvement in the interior and stereo. There has to be, because surely, like they can't just keep doing that for another 2
Well, look at
years.
their sales are getting better, it seems, every year.
Yeah.
So, like I say with Toyota, the 70 series, so why don't they fix the rear axle? As far as they're concerned, they built the perfect vehicle.
Yeah.
The amount of sales they have, and
It's still
Australia is actually quite a small percentage of them. Obviously, we know where the majority of them go. And their care factor on rear track is limited.
Yeah.
So there's no reason for them to change it, because all they see is sales and
Keep flogging that dead horse.
and that's why they hit the Y2 for so long, because to do them a while, I mean, I'm surprised they held off so long. The best thing they ever did was go to Series 5. That look of it's gorgeous, and that the sales prove that. That's what
went berserk after that. They just changed the front bumper and
yeah, but Cathy didn't change. They were still the same vehicle, but when they first came out, everyone bagged them out for being not the prettiest. It can be made nice, but
the difference between like a Series 1 TIL and a Series 5 TIL is, I think, the rear view camera, rear view mirror's got a camera built or screen built into it, and that's it. Like if you look at the 10 years difference between the two, and bumpers, of course, that sort of thing. But the interior is exactly the same. All the functions are pretty much the same. They didn't do much. I know one stat that actually surprised me. I was looking at last week was how many Rams are selling in this country now. Like it said, like 8,000 or something Rams. So there'd be more Rams sold than Patrols, I reckon. Like the 1500s. And even if you have a look up through the 2500s, there was like quite a significant amount of them sold. I almost think, as a Silverado drives past, I almost think those Patrol owners that were like right on their GVM or GCM limits are going to start looking at those American trucks now too. Mainly because you can buy a Patrol and put a GVM upgrade on it, or you can just buy an American truck and just have it there. Or no, I should ask you, can you just go and buy an American truck 1500 sort of series and it's going to be able to tow 4.5 tonne?
No.
So what's the limitations there?
The GCM is just over 7.7 tonne on the DT.
Yeah.
The nice looking one. The DS is 7.2. You definitely can't tow 4.5 tonne with a DS Ram. With the same GVM and the same towing capacity, the GCM's half tonne less. Yes, you could grab a 4.5 tonne trailer. You could hook it to a brand new Ram DT and it will legally tow it. It has its limitations mechanically, physically, but the problem is you don't really want 4.5 tonne behind a 2-point-something tonne tow rig.
Yeah.
You typically want the tow rig to be heavier than the trailer, or at least comparable.
It's the tail wagging the dog.
Yeah. A bit different though, because prime movers are 9-10 tonne towing 20-30 tonne trailers, all up 130 tonne, but the way the loads apply, they can't get a whip up.
Yeah, okay.
Through a dog trailer. So,
Gotcha. So, but I've even noticed, like Nissan will say a Y62 can tow 3.5 tonne, but if you take one out of the showroom, put a 350 kilo bull weight on it,
yes,
they like the wheels go like this and they turn in, and like you'll only get 1,000 k's out of your tyres. It blows me away how all the manufacturers can say, yep, you can buy this and it tows 3.5 tonne, but it just doesn't. And I think even the Rams that we've had through, the rear suspension isn't set up to tow. That's basically the first mod you have to do if you actually want to tow with them.
Yeah.
All right, so American trucks aren't the silver bullet then, is what I'm hearing.
No, they obviously they're expensive. They can't really tow. Well, the biggest limitation is, yes, on paper you can tow, but the rear axle loads on all of them are quite low.
Oh, okay.
The rear axle load on a Ram is lower than a Grand Cherokee of the same manufacturer.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So, and physically they've got some downsides as well. There's some upgrades there with the bearing situation, but they're not. That's where you have limitations. It's a minefield. People come to speak to us and go,
Yeah.
I've got my car weighed by this caravan weighing mob, and it's I'm out by this, I'm out by that. What car do I buy? And I'm like, that's I said basically, if a car's got a 3.5 ton tow capacity, you're not towing 3.5 ton within reality.
Yeah.
You know, especially all the Utes. Utes you can't tow 3.5 ton. The Ranger and the Amarok are the closest. They have close to a real GCM, but a 105 series Land Cruiser has a better GCM than a brand new Ranger and Amarok, which is insane.
But you still got that problem where it's the tail wagging the dog. Even with like my Navara, the V8 in it, it can pull it, but like it just feels bad. It doesn't feel good. It feels like if you're going down a hill, like coming down through the Adelaide hills, there's this through the Hyson tunnels. After it, you have to like do a bit of a slight turn left, and I swear the van is trying to push the back of the ute like to go on a straight line, and I'm trying to turn around, and like scares the crap out of me. So I reckon there would have been like the marketing people of Ram or Silverado or Tundra or F-150 would have been all sitting in a room one day, and there'd be like operations on this side, marketing over here, and the marketing guys are saying, yeah, 4.5 ton, we can do it. And the operations guys would be going, oh, well, we could, but, and they're like, no, we're just doing it. Let's print the brochure. And it's just taken off now. Now, all of these big brands are saying 4.5 ton towing. Actually, I don't know if you've done any research on the new Ford Ranger Super Duty or whatever it's called.
As much as there is to do,
yeah,
with the information we have.
With 4.5 ton quoted towing as well.
Even that with a 8 ton GCM, that means that you really want to be heavy on the car with the towing there. You'll be weighing 4 ton before the trailer's hooked up with a 4 ton trailer. So you'll weigh about 4.4, 450. And you'll weigh 8 ton all up on Chevy ball weight.
That's huge.
Yeah, but it's whether how heavy they're going to be as a tare weight. You don't want to be driving around it. They're probably going to have a tare weight of 2.7 ton. Would have thought with the accessories, additional heavier axle, 8 stud, they're going to be a much bigger vehicle. So they're going to weigh probably maybe near on the 3 ton mark.
Yeah.
Can't be much heavier than that, otherwise it sort of defeats the purpose of kind of big of a GVM, more for the towing capacity. But
I've got a few mates that have got the Rangers to tow the 3.5 ton, and they keep cooking transes, and like I'm trying to work out how Ford are going to go from saying, yeah, we can tow 3.5 to 4.5 ton. Surely it's not going to be the same like trans, because they're cooking trans as it is. I'm hoping there's soup it up somehow, put maybe the F-150 trans in it or something.
That's probably what they would do, because I believe the engine in some form is used in the F trucks. I'm not seeing it in America, but because we get the V8, I know twin V6 petrol we get at the moment.
Yeah.
They're going to sort it out. I mean, obviously they're saying 2026, so it's not like they're bringing it out straight away and they're going to jump the gun.
It's going to be the longest campaign in race with Patrol for the Y63 of this coming out in 2 years' time. But anyway, we'll just have to sit back and watch.
It'd be good to see what the competition. Obviously, Toyota's going to have to pull the finger out and a competing vehicle. Who
I reckon is going to jump out and do something, it'll be the Chinese market. Even from just driving this Tank 300, it's like they've gone and had a look at the stats, or they went to car sales and looked at all the features of every single four-wheel drive and went tick, 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 tick. We'll put every single one of the features in a car and then sell it for 50 grand. Sooner or later, some smart person over there will go, oh, Australians want to tow, 4.5 ton and have 8 ton GCM and all that sort of thing. I bet they come out with some, probably big vehicle. It'll probably be like a Tank 700 or an Alpha, whatever it is, the next model up. Or that new BYD Shark looks very interesting. I don't know, do you research those sorts of things as well?
I did. I tried looking into it. I can't find the approval for it through the government approval.
Oh, really?
New vehicles isn't out yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to find it. Only BYD and probably the others, the Seal and all the others, but can't find any sort of intricate information. So as soon as I find a new car's coming out, I'm onto that, the new Prado. I found all the specs for that, ride height, GVMs, tyre sizes. They run the same standard tyre as a Y62, which is quite impressive.
Okay.
So it means we'll be on like 34 point something inch tyre and a 3-inch lift on a new Prado.
Yeah.
And not everyone's cup of tea. I'm a bit of a fan.
I haven't looked into them enough. I went to the Adelaide car show and they had the 150 Prado and they had the Tundra there, and I spent all my time on the Tundra, to be honest. It's like when Rams, like the 1500 Ram come out, I'm like, that was basically all there was, that looked good. And then After that was the Silverado, and I went and test drove one of them. And the one I drove was the Lariat, I think it was.
Yep.
Supposed to be the nicer one.
Yeah, Lariat. Yeah,
but it was like really stiff in the back. Like I swear my Navara drove better than this $140,000 ute. And so didn't do anything about that. Went and looked at the F-150 and I was in love with it. Like you sit in that thing and it's all except for the seats. I looked at the seats like the seats are out of a taxi, but like everything else was amazing. I didn't drive that car because the car show was on the next week. And I saw the Tundra. It's like every time they do a 1500 size ute, it just keeps getting better. And I'm a little, I wouldn't say I'm biased. I think I'm independent on this one. But so far, I think the Tundra is the best out of all of them.
Yep.
That just felt amazing. It didn't feel half thought. I haven't driven one, but I'm assuming it's got the similar power and everything to all the rest of them at the moment.
Yeah, I've driven a new Tundra. Yeah, I've driven all the other American trucks. I'm a diehard Ram fan for the heavy duty range.
Like the 2500 sort of thing.
Live axle front and rear, coil sprung front and rear, solid engine, a OK transmission.
Yeah.
And the Silverado's a torsion bar front end, a leaf spring rear, with one of the best engines and arguably the best transmission at the moment.
Okay.
But the 1500 range, Silverado's that's got its weak points as well. That's the reason why Ram sells the most, because without people knowing the ins and outs of and stuff or any issues, they just go and drive them, look at the features and go, this is the one. If you want the features and you want the drive, they drive coil sprung rear.
Yeah.
None of the others have coil spring rears.
Gotcha.
So straight away, initial comfort, unloaded when you first test drive it.
Yeah.
A lot of people put weight into them. Once you weight into them, they'll respond differently. The Ram needs some upgraded springs that can't handle much more than basically can handle its payload barely. They're more of a sports ute. The Americans aren't using them the way we use them. They just go buy the bigger version.
Yeah.
The price difference between a 1500 limited and a 5500 limited Ram is less than 10 grand. They just go buy the bigger version.
Yeah, because they can.
For a bigger payload. So from the 3500 upwards, the GCM's around the same. It's just you carry more rather than tow more.
Gotcha.
So the 5500 has the same GCM as the 3500 typically, but it carries more, so it's more of those dump truck type vehicles, where the 3500 is more of a tow rig that can handle 2-3 tonne on the back.
That's what Australia wants, I think. Everyone wants to just keep towing bigger and heavier things and go further with them. Even myself included, I'd love to go up West Coast. I've never done that before. I'm trying to work out how I'm going to do that somehow and have a job and work and pay a mortgage at the same time. I don't know how everyone does it at my age doing it, but anyway, that's a whole nother subject. All right, let's say you were given, and this could be dangerous giving an engineer a blank check here. You've got a blank check, you can go and either buy or build whatever you want, let's say to go and do a West Coast trip. What would you get? And pick any car, any price.
That's what it'd have to be a done all out, like a limited, obviously a limited Ram, dually, convert to super singles. You can get to up to like 40-something inch tyres.
Yeah.
And you got this new liquid spring suspension set up, so it can handle around corner. Yeah, that's the price tag.
Do you understand? I don't understand how they work. I see EC Off-Road talk about it quite a bit, but I don't actually understand how that liquid spring works.
It's basically it's hydraulic, but the control system is quite smart, and then it's fairly mechanical. So it leans over and it senses the load and then pushes it to that side.
Like different to say HBMC, because that's kind of the concept that Nissan were trying to do.
Yeah, there's still a spring there, where its entire weight spring is all just in a shock basically.
Gotcha.
There's no leaf spring, no core spring anymore. It's completely gone. So that way they can control the height. When you go in corners and stuff, it can pump more pressure to the side so it stays more stable, because they're using those big earth moving $500,000 rigs.
It's a big weight, isn't it?
A big weight and make it stable. And obviously, because typically when you add more weight to a vehicle, it handles differently to when it's empty, where this system is still be different but much closer, because it just puts more pressure and keeps the car more stable. And it actually works. It's all good to get the theory right, but it seems it works well. It's just a horribly expensive setup that
people would pay for if it's going to solve a problem. It's unfortunate they don't make something for sort of a 3.5 ton car or 4 ton car. It seems like it's only the big cars that they're doing it for.
Yeah, but again, it might just be the cost and suitability. The range of light vehicles now weight can range half a tonne to a tonne, where these vehicles are ranging, they have 3, 4, 5 tonne payloads.
Yeah.
So that sort of range, trying to get a spring to ride bearable, empty, to be able to handle the weight without burying, it's a bit of a hard one to.
Well, that's that whole sort of what they tried to do with call deletes, really. I don't know if you had much experience with them, but I'd put them in my car, and it seemed to be good when it was a good ride around town, and you could adjust it and all that sort of thing. But I found it created a lot of, like, you had to pump it up to deal with the weight. And when I did that, it had a lot more rebound. And I think because my car was lifted, quite lifted, like the shock couldn't control the rebound of the bellow. But I think that's kind of the only sort of solution for under 3.5 tonne. But I'm still not sold on that one either. We talked heaps about GVM. We talked a little bit about GCM, and that seems like it's another like state-based quandary. What's the lay of the land in Perth with GCMs?
So we're waiting for it's the testing required is the same as in Queensland. It's the same testing the Americans do on every vehicle above 3,000 pound towing. So they Klugers go through this testing. So Ford, GM, and Ram, not Dodge anymore, all get together and have a standardised testing because it was the media actually come out and said, it was Ford or whatever said, that the new vehicle's got 15 tonne towing, and they said what changed, and it was basically pixie dust. They were just nothing. We decided it's
a number.
Tow more. So now the pressure was on, and they created some testing around Davis Dam, so a track in the States.
Right.
And they all use it. So if they then want to increase towing capacity on a vehicle, it's got to handle all this, stability testing, acceleration, braking, handbrake. The car can't overheat. The transmission's got to be able to handle the weight, so they're actually tested.
Yeah.
Whereas there's nothing like that for Australian vehicles.
No, that's it. Like, well, depending on how you look at it, like I'll quote DMW again. I'm rounding up, but they'll move a Patrol from 7 tonne GCM to 8 tonne GCM, but don't really talk about putting extra transcoolers and all that sort of thing on, which we're just starting to get into, like researching the transcooler side of things. And I think Patrols actually probably need one if you're going to start towing, those sort of, even if you're getting close to your 7 tonne, like we're starting to see transmission fails. Long term, most likely. The test, they did the Davis Dam test, which was done on a dyno. Yeah. Because we don't have the truck in Australia to be able to do it. And it passed with flying colours. The Patrol did? Yeah, okay. So that situation. But that wasn't driving on the highway at 100 k's an hour with 3.5 tonne behind it, car maxed out and hitting hills and stuff for long periods of time. And for tens of thousands of kilometres. Yeah. Is where, but the efficiency and everything, temperatures all worked out well for the test at 7.7 tonne. So the car is capable for the most part. It's just like any upgrade, there's always more wear on components. Your bearings get more components, your bushes. Naturally, you'll service the car, maintain it more. Yeah. It's just the notable one for us. We were down in Mount Gambier. A bunch of 62s were all driving back. It was the worst day ever, but we had to get back for work. It's like 40 k an hour headwinds, and Steve and I basically, so if this is our Workshop Warrior video number 1, Steve Allen's going to be number 2, and I'm going to ask him about this particular situation. But in summary, he was basically forging on, kept it in 5th gear, watching the temps on his scan gauge 3, and the temps were staying sort of under 100 and following the engine sort of temps, and we were considering that that's safe and fine. Got back to Adelaide, and it seems everyone that complains, it's not that when you're towing, it's you're within like 10 k's of home when something goes wrong. And yeah, his was starting to shudder and do weird things, even to the point where he drove to work on the Monday morning and he felt like he was going to lose 3rd gear sort of thing. And so we did a full trans flush and replaced the oil, and he said the oil just turned to water, it boiled. So even though the scan gauge was showing under 100 the whole time, I think it was like in the 90s, but it was very obvious that the trans cooked itself or the fluid cooked itself, had all these symptoms, new fluid in, the thing come back to brand new again, and it's been fine. So now the thing is, what are we going to do to avoid that again? And it's most likely, well, step one, don't do, because he's supercharged, he's got the power to push it. So he sat on 110 the whole way home in 5th gear and just like loaded that poor thing up with, him and his van would be somewhere between 6.5 and 7 tonnes, something like that all up. And, but we're going to have to find ways to overcome the trans problems or the trans cooling problems now, which is obviously trans cool. So that's the new thing we're probably going to start talking about when someone does the GVM, have a conversation about what they're towing, how heavy it's going to be, what's a typical, run with it, and it may well be, all right, let's do the GVM upgrade and we'll do a trans cooler upgrade as well. Even though it's not stated, but I think it needs it.
Yeah, so like J-Max and their big GVM upgrades, GCM upgrades on the 70 series, they require a clutch upgrade. Which is no brainer. The 70 series standard clutch is woeful. There's no arguing that. And Lovell's do a GCM upgrade on the D-Max, and they require a radiator upgrade. They did the testing, and the radiator wasn't up to it. Yep. So yeah, there's definitely some cars have got some. Once you exceed the factory rate, they've got some weak points. Yeah. And yes, they might pass a particular test, but long term and prevention rather than cure. Yes. The cost of a trans cooler, even a custom fancy setup, is going to be easily outweighed by a new transmission. Especially like for these people over in WA, you're going up to Broome. It won't fault like 100 k's from Perth. It'll fault 100 k's from Broome, and that's an expensive tow truck. So I think probably over here in Perth is where there's going to be very good trans cooler sales soon, I reckon. Being up north and the long distances we travel typically, and the temperatures and stuff, at least up north, it's definitely going to be a good idea. Like I've towed like across the middle of Australia. It's been shown 56 degrees on the dash and it's gone fine. I've just like kept my speeds down and like monitored everything. It's been okay. But yeah, it's that insurance policy building the car. So when you do have that 40k headwind, that you can deal with it at the same time too. And that was some really good information that came out just then. I'm hoping we've captured it all. I said 45 minutes. We're 51 minutes in, but that I think the info out of that is stuff that is being talked around campfires and in back sheds, and even industry gets confused. Like I've been doing this for many years now, and I still get confused about GVM, GCM, engineering, federal versus state versus Adelaide versus Perth. I bet I'm sure there'll be some questions that haven't been answered, so you can put them in the comments below. But really appreciate you like coming in and explaining it all, because you don't get to just sit down and talk to someone that does this all day, every day, very often. So the problem we got is a lot of customers come in and the misinformation, because the information they have is correct for a different state. Yeah. And we're not even 10% of the population, I believe, of Australia. So all the information on forums is all eastern states based. Yes. And it's different over here. It's not necessarily better. I think it's better, a bit biased. But it's different. So you can do a lot more than you can in other states easily when you go heavily modified vehicles. Minor mods is where everything requires certification of some sort. So there's some vehicles you can do a fair bit of mods to, using factory parts, and still goes through pits, but it's only a few cases. Typically it's, everyone calls it nanostate, but when you go with heavy mods and stuff, WA is one of the better ones. Being that we can just go use VSP14 and go through it, where other states, their system it really depends on, they have the limitations, and also go to an engineer and exceed those if they pass relevant testing. In some way, it's simple, like we do in Adelaide, but our engineers are signatory for other states as well. And when we do it for all the other states, it's pretty easy because we've done so many of them. Our engineers, we do the same kit every time, so it's like, yep, all right, off we go. But over here, it seems like you have to have like weigh tickets. It's got to go through DOT. Like you don't have to get anything weighed in Adelaide. It's just assumed, yep, that's fine. All the measurements coming out pretty standardised. In South Australia and every other state, you can, if say on track state you have to use this coil, well in Adelaide you can use a similar coil, and as long as it's
the engineer looks at both specs and says, yes, they're similar. You can use whatever brand you want, Tough Dog, our Samurai, whatever. But in Perth, pre-reg, we have to use a Dobbins coil. We have no other choice.
Yes.
Whereas, yeah, it's a lot stricter in that respect over here.
Yeah, so that's where, those are the different ways of approving vehicles. But obviously pre-reg, yeah, it's like part number has to be used. But we have different ways of approving vehicles. There's SSM pre-rego, there's type approvals based off of SSMs, there's each vehicle type approvals, there's type approvals, so done on their own.
Yeah.
Again, we accept other states' engineering case by case. There's a lot of process. That's where people call up and I sort of...
Yeah, that's the confusing bit.
That's where I sort of basically interpret. They give us what they want, we sort of...
Because there's type approval, that's like if you're going to do it once, and then there's like a blanket sort of type approval as well, isn't it?
Type approval is when you do multiple vehicles, exact
Okay.
same,
All
exact same. And then you got there'll be a new system as well once it comes with design approval, and that's where there's going to be a bit more flexibility. Again, with like spring, say it's, use the right same spring rate, spring, depending on a different brand that we can substitute, hopefully. The details haven't come out yet, so once it does, then I can get all over it. If maybe like we can alter, basically make a new type approval,
Yep.
and basically grab an old one, tweak it, make a new type approval, and it ends up being two. The problem with that is if you have multiple core springs, with a lot of type approvals, it gets confusing.
Yeah.
And you kind of want to simplify it. So, there can be ones where, say, if you do an SSM, say your SSM turned to a type approval, depending on what modifications are, they'll either do it and tweak it. With the YC2 they tweak, because most things were legal. Just a couple of 37s you can't do, 35s you can't do, and they tweak it. Whereas, say, with the Ram, one of our suppliers is mostly illegal, 6-inch 37s. It's mostly too much. They go, no, as a general thing, that's too much. We'll still do type approval, but we won't base it off the SSM, we'll base it off of just data.
Yeah.
And, it can get a little bit, obviously a little bit confusing.
So we should put some shameless plugs in now. So obviously you want to promote Packard Automotive. You want to talk quickly about what you can do for people, and then I'll talk about what we can do for people.
No worries. Well, specialise in four-wheel drive and GVM upgrade stuff. Keep things legal. So custom one-off stuff and certified engine conversions and everything really, chassis modifications. The biggest one that most places won't touch because of legalities. But we're covered to be able to do that. But anyway, anything from servicing to
Whole bit.
Yeah, so we do a lot of weird and wonderful custom one-off stuff for mining companies as well. Come through and want seat modifications that are a bit obscure, and take care of it.
And so plug 4x4 DNA. We're known for our Y62 patrols and doing GVM upgrades for them, but we're now moving into the Ford Ranger market. We're looking to do Gladiator as well. We're doing them over in Melbourne now, starting to do them in Adelaide. I'd like to actually get one through our Perth shop soon, so if you've got a Gladiator and you want it engineered, let's talk to you about that. Even off the back of all the Tough Dog range, we can do all their Jimny upgrades as well. Hilux, we work with Tough Dog, On-Track and DMW, probably mostly DMW, but that gives us a lot of cars, especially the pre-reg ones, are very easy to get engineered now. All right, let's wind this up. This is our Workshop Warrior 001 video, so let's hope more than one person watches it.
No worries.
Thank you.